Everybody, yes, you are looking at the ultimate creativity right here. This is a robot that Carter and I built of Carter's inventions. So each piece of this robot, from the tips of his toes to the top of his hat that has a helicopter on it, each one of these was a special creation that Carter saw in a pile of materials that was bound for the recycle bin. And together we took all of his creations and made something completely different. One of the things that I liken that to for tonight's conversation is that there are so many truths around us, and every idea we have, every thought we have, every person we come in contact with is part of this bigger picture. And who better to talk to us about these truths, about the self-trust, about the journey that we're on, than Alan Cohen. And you guys will get to see him right after we come back from the open, because we're going to be jumping directly into our conversation to get to the goods. First know that your heart was starting to open and you were discovering this new way of being?
When I was 14 years old, I had just had my bar mitzvah, and I swore that I would never enter a synagogue again. And then one day I got a postcard saying there was a youth brunch at the synagogue. And I swear I had no reason to go. There was no rational, logical reason for me to go, but something inside me said, go. And I went, and there was a young, dynamic rabbi there who gave an impassioned lecture, and his heart was open, and he had a direct connection to God, to Spirit, and something inside me knew that I was home. And so I joined the youth group, and he became my big brother, my mentor for 7 years. I dove into Orthodox Judaism for that length of time. And that was my first conscious moment of entering this, what eventually became a long spiritual path. But I always remember that as the guidance of spirit rather than the ego, because there was no way it would have gone according to my mind, but my soul moved me to go.
When you saw him connected to spirit, I'm curious, was it a feeling? Was it something that you saw? How did you personally witness that?
Here's somebody who's alive. Here's somebody who's tuned in. And he really cared about me. He developed a relationship with me, and he saw the best in me. I was really fortunate to have such a great mentor. And he just saw possibilities in me that I didn't see and no one else saw. So it was somebody who truly loved me and affirmed me. And at a deep cellular level, I recognized that and responded.
We need somebody to affirm us, and it doesn't matter who we are, or what we're doing, or where we're at on our journey.
I've heard it called my just right tribe. Just right tribe, meaning that there's a group of souls or people that we're all connected to, and we feel kind of lost and alone and abandoned until we find that. But whether it's one person or many, when we connect, we know we're home, and that's the deep, deep cellular affirmation that we're in our right place with the right people.
The theme of yours seems to be look inside, look inwardly, and then you can find your answers there. Isn't that kind of dangerous? What happens if a person looks inside and they're not very skillful? Can't that put them on the wrong track?
Well, they haven't really looked deep enough then, because there are many layers to looking within, and it's not just my belief, Scott, it's my knowledge, is that there's greatness and wisdom and love and connection in every soul, in every person. And when we truly tap into that, whether it's through meditation or prayer or martial arts or yoga or fun or ballroom dancing, whatever it is, you get to find the place inside you that knows. And so it's in there. It's just in there, and you just have to find it. You just can't stop until you get there.
Even though it might be dim, the light is still there. We just haven't found something that lets it get a little brighter. And it only takes one spark to get that ember going and that light brighter and brighter.
Just because some clouds come between us and the sun doesn't mean the sun has disappeared. It just means that for the moment, our vision of the sun is obscured.
What role does synchronicity play in that?
A huge role. I believe that life is orchestrated at a higher level than the five senses show us. So when we're in our good feeling energy, when we're in our centered energy, our clear energy, it's a frequency. It's just Abraham Hicks calls it a vortex. It's a good way of saying it, which means that we're now operating at an energy level that matches who we truly are. And when we are, we suddenly are open to and have access to other people and events and experiences that match that. And this is what people talk about when they talk about the law of attraction, which is kind of overused, but it's a very true principle. My best contribution and yours to connecting with the right people synchronistically is to stay true to our passion, because when we're in our passion, we're in our right mind. When in our right mind, we're open to connect with other right minds.
Knowing what you know today, what would you tell somebody my age, or what would you tell yourself when you were my age to stay open and to be truly heart-centered?
There's a great quote from Goethe who said, "When you finally trust yourself, you will know how to live." And so whether your age or my age or Scott's age or 12 years old, really the principle is universally, when you fall back on your own wisdom and your own sense of confidence, however deep it takes to get there, things line up. It really comes back to self-trust and authenticity. Those are the keys.
That's awesome. Trust, that's actually one of my themes for this year, is that I know that there's this deep inherent trust that I have of myself and of others, but sometimes they don't align. There's this gap there.
Well, that gap is an exciting gap, because that's the creative dissonance that keeps us moving ahead. It's the sand that irritates the oyster to make the pearl. So it's really important for us to check in. I have a very simple definition of integrity. Integrity is when the life that you're living on the outside matches who you are on the inside, when that's lined up. And when it's not, there's pain, there's distress, there's dissonance. And that's the dissonance you have to pay attention to, because when you resolve it, you're going to move ahead. It's like the clutch. It's like resolving that dissonance is the thing that shifts gears, that moves you to your next stratum.
You just endeared yourself to me more than you could ever know by using the sand to make a pearl inside an oyster, I have to tell you, because a lot of people say we're diamonds in the rough. Well, that only takes pressure. That's not hard. What are you talking about? We've got to deal with the hard stuff in addition to everything else to create something that is so beautiful to look at that other people are inspired by that and can find that within themselves too. So that's what I was going to add.
Well, I often say that a minus is half of a plus waiting for a stroke of vertical awareness.
I like that.
Meaning that, there's something that is indeed negative. You get sick, you have a divorce, you have a financial upset. So, okay, that hurts. But then when you raise your awareness as a result of it, you become empowered in ways that are far more exciting than if the first minus hadn't happened. So basically, a lot of life is about plussing the minuses.
Yes. I like that.
You're lighting on one of my favorite life themes, Alan, and that is, and I hope that you can elaborate on this somewhat, that we're able to create our own reality. And I'm reminded all those many years ago when you were at Crystal Mountain in Washington that you talked about a trip on a horse that you were on that was a narrow. If you wouldn't mind relating that, and as much as I'd love to, I won't give away the punchline or the theme. I'll give that to you, but I think it illustrates the point.
Well, it's a great story. Many years ago, when I first moved to Maui, someone invited me on a horseback ride, and I said, sure. And we went up on this trail that was on a cliff that was overlooking the ocean. And I'm not an experienced rider, but I was just in it for the fun. And when I got up there, it wasn't much fun, because this horse was on this little tiny trail, not much wider than the horse. And at about 50 or 100 feet down, there were big waves breaking on jagged lava rocks. And I thought, oh, how do I get myself into this? And I started to feel panicky and terrified. And then I remembered that Fritz Perls said that fear is excitement without breath. fear is excitement without breath. I thought, okay, well, is there some other way I could look at this that wouldn't be so scary? And I asked myself, well, if you knew that you were going to get to the other side of this mountain without crashing into the ocean, how would you feel about it? I thought, well, that would be fun, wouldn't it? It would be an exciting adventure. And so I just, for a moment, tried on for size the idea that the horse was not going to fall and it was going to be fun. And something lifted. And at that moment, what was terrifying became terrific. Same root word, terrifying, terrific. That energy that was scaring me got kind of moved up through my system, and I actually enjoyed the ride. Then, of course, I found out the horse makes the same trip 3 times a day, so the horse knew what it was doing. It was a good reframe for me to ask myself, how would I feel if this could be fun instead? And that shifted everything.
Do you find this very often when you talk to people, that a simple thing that you might have just said almost in passing, and then years later it circles around and comes back to you?
I remember things that people said to me 40 years ago. Once I was walking through the San Francisco airport, and everybody's busy in the airport, running for the planes, and I was kind of harried myself. And then I saw a man walking toward me who looked so calm and so peaceful and so happy that the minute I saw him, I went, I came to peace. And he wasn't a priest, he wasn't wearing a robe, he was just a regular-looking guy, but he was peaceful. And that shifted me. And that was probably 20, 30 years ago. I still remember that moment. I never saw him again. He wasn't famous, I don't know who he was. But we have these golden moments, or these pivotal moments that just go into our core. And I really think that they are messages from spirit, from higher power, working through a human experience to give us a moment of upliftment. And you have wisely remembered that story, as we all have other stories. So let us be open to receive these miracle moments that actually propel us to higher consciousness.
Could you tell us a little bit about Hilda?
Hilda was an unusual, little-known, great soul. She was a woman who grew up in Salt Lake City in the early 1920s, I guess, or 10s or something like that. She had visions as a child of saints and angels and yogis coming to her bedroom, and she was a mystic way ahead of her time. In the late 40s, I think, she went to India as a classical dancer, and she stayed there for 18 years and became a sadhu. She walked barefoot and met all the gurus and yogis. And then she came back in the 60s, and by that time there was a consciousness explosion. And at that time, lots of young people were looking for God and taking drugs and having transcendental experiences, and they were looking for answers and trying to make sense. And she was the perfect person who had a background that was founded in deep spirituality. So I started going to classes, and there were thousands of people that went to her classes. And she was a channeler and a psychic and a healer and a guru and a comedian and a friend and a grandmother, and just no box really fit her. She couldn't be put in a box. And I studied with her for 14 years, and she became my intimate mentor and worked with me individually. And she changed a lot of lives. And she has a website. She's passed on, but her students made a website called, I think it's goldenquest.com, goldenquest.com, alternate HildaCharlton.com, like Charleston without an S, HildaCharlton.com. And a lot of her books and lectures are recorded there. So she was a very unusual, gifted mystic that not many people knew, but those who knew her were very blessed. She helped me a lot.
Forgive me for not knowing this. Did she precede or post-date dragons?
I wrote Dragon when I was with her. You're referring to my book, The Dragon Doesn't Live Here Anymore, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
That's correct.
What is it like when you sit down and read work that you've already done, Alan? Does it resonate with you differently today than it did some other time when you read it compared to when you wrote it?
That's really a great question. Thank you for asking, Jess. Because once in a while I do read my older books, and I have two very strong feelings. One is that the truth that I knew then is the truth that I know now, is the truth that I've always known. And somehow, on some level, I've always been tapped into a great field of wisdom that I feel blessed to connect with. It's almost like I I know what I know, and I've always known it. So I get that. It's like, wow, I knew this then. Where have I come since then? And then the other piece is that I look at my writing and say, I could have written that better. I would say that differently now. I don't believe that exactly anymore. So it's like my spirit resonates with the essence of the material, then my ego comes and goes, I could improve on that. Maybe I'll go back and write it again, but I won't. It's kind of like a double thing, but they're both interesting lessons, aren't they?
I think that's a model for anybody who is watching this to take a look and say, hey, you know what? It's cool that the core is the same no matter what lens I happen to be looking out through, yet there's always going to be that piece.
Yeah.
There's always, that hindsight is 20/20. Well, sure it is, and that's awesome.
Well, they say that when you give a lecture, there are really 3 lectures that you give. One is the one you prepare, one is the one you give, and one is the one you wish you gave.
Right.
I'm going to change courses just a little bit. Are things more or less universal and there's nothing new under the sun? Or, we might evolve a little bit, but that's about it. Or are we poised to enter, or maybe in the middle, or have already gone into what might be thought of as a new era, a new way fundamentally of doing things here on Earth as human beings and as spirits, I suppose?
Yes,
you get
and
the
yes.
gist of my question?
Okay. Yeah, yes and yes. They're both happening simultaneously, that there are absolute universal principles that are unbendable and exist forever. And that's just the truth. And then, of course, on another level, what the Hindus would call Maya or illusion or samskara, whatever you want to call it, there is this world of appearances in which we evolve, and we go from density to greater lightness. And so we are absolutely moving from greater density to greater lightness. And basically all we're doing is lining up with greater and greater truth that already exists. So it's not an either or, it's a both and.
I did either read this or hear you say this. The people that came before us had experiences and they learned from them. So we don't have to learn the same experiences today because we have different things to learn today.
They say that every generation stands on the shoulders of the previous one, which means that our forebears learned things before us and we are learning things that they didn't know. So it's simple evolution. It's taking what you've learned, either in your own lifetime or from the lifetimes that preceded you, and working with it and building on that. Sometimes I think, well, we're not getting anywhere as a world, but then I look back and I see, it's not very long ago that women couldn't even vote, and women were second-class citizens, and there's a very good chance we might have a woman president soon. Isn't that interesting? When African Americans were discriminated against, it was slavery 150 years ago. A lot of crazy things happen in the not so distant past. And so we are evolving somehow, slowly, painfully, but we are evolving. Let's celebrate that. Even while a lot of things still don't work, there is an evolution that's happening, and you and I are part of it.
We are part of it. Do you hear that, everybody? We're part of it. So you have the choice to stay where you are, which will probably bring more pain or suffering or closedness or disconnection, or own it, embrace it, and see what happens and what lights you up along the way and who else's light you can shine brighter by just your existence.
Let me interject here. I do a lot of life coach training. That's one of the main things I do these days. So we train a batch of coaches 3 or 4 times a year. The first thing we address is their sense of unworthiness, because most people who step forward to become a coach or a counselor or a healer have this sense, who am I to do this? And I have my own issues, and why would anybody want to pay me to help them, and on and on. So we meet that head on, and we do everything we can to bolster their confidence. And one of the things I tell them is that there are a lot of people out there in pain. There's great suffering in the world. People are hurting physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, relationships, finances. People are hurting. And I said they need healers. They need people with bright minds and bright hearts. And I said, if you don't do it, who's going to do it? If you wait till you're a perfect healer to heal, you're never going to do it. It's like if you wait till you're a perfect parent, you're never going to be a parent. You learn to be a parent by being a parent. So I said, think of it this way. It's not about what are they going to think of me. It's who can I help? And if I can possibly make a contribution to alleviate suffering on this planet, why would I ever hold back or delay to do that? And people find that inspiring because it's true.
And it resonates on that deep level in such a way that they're like, oh, okay, I just needed it laid out for me so I could give myself permission almost.
Exactly. Exactly.
Isn't it amazing how much we rely on permission to do things, whether it's from ourselves or others?
It's funny you should mention it because I work with the Japanese a lot, which I enjoy very much. And the Japanese have been severely trained not to trust themselves. The whole culture is based on following societal edicts. And a lot of them are neurotic and guilty and shameful because they feel like they cannot live up to other people's standards. And so I often joke, but it's true, that a lot of my coaching with them is about giving them permission to do what they want to do anyway. So a woman comes and says, oh, I'm angry at my father and I don't want to talk to him. I said, fine, don't talk to him. You mean I don't have to talk to him? No, you don't have to. Oh, really? Thank you very much. And I know full well that if I give him permission not to talk to his father, he's going to come around to it eventually. Right. And a lady comes and says, I just got divorced and I like to have 3 boyfriends. Great, you can have 3 boyfriends. Really? Yeah, you can have as many boyfriends. Really? Thank you so much. And then I said, there's no rule on how many boyfriends you can have. And then she phones me a month later and says, well, I picked one. That feels good. It's all I really want. So, it's kind of an extreme case. We're a little more liberal in America, but still people are looking for permission to be who they already are. And that's permission means per mission. You are on your mission. Per means according to, and mission is. So when you give yourself permission, you are per your mission. You're on your mission.
When someone comes to you and they say, well, I don't know what my purpose in life is, how would you respond to that, Alan?
To be exactly what you are. To find out where your joy lives and follow it and live it and express it and see the results of it. To just step into your own shoes. There's really no other purpose. We think we have some big cosmic purpose, but we do. We're all spirit, needing to shine. Yeah. But how that spirit shines and the venue through which it shines is very intimate and very personal. And so you have to be very true to your own path. You cannot mimic somebody else's path. So I think Emerson said that imitation is suicide. And so we have to take back our power from those we seek to imitate and find it in ourselves.
Generally speaking, do people get better as they get older?
I like to think so. I like to think so. I mean, hopefully we are somehow. We all have our ups and downs, but there is an evolution, and there is a growth, and there is an awakening that's happening.
Mm-hmm. When you think forward like 100 years from now, maybe sooner than that, but let's go 100 years from now. What are things that are current and relevant today that are still going to be true 100 years from now?
I think there's certain truths that are eternal. I think the power of love is eternal. I think our connection to spirit is eternal. I think the desire and yearning for right and rewarding relationship is eternal. I think the yearning to express creativity and advance humanity is intrinsic in us. And my belief is that as we go along, that which does not match it will become more and more obvious and fall away more and more. So I think we're going to have more and more pure healing. I think we're going to have more and more pure education. I think relationships are so up for grabs now. It's like a big topsy-turvy world for most people, and they don't know what the heck to make out of relationships. And I think the old models of relationship and marriage and sexuality and all those issues, I think they have to fall apart before we can reinvent them and find out what's real. And I think each of us is doing that in our own unique way as we go along.
Now we're going to look from this moment into the past a little, and I'm going to ask you to choose. Now, if it were me, I'd be like, what? I have to choose? Because I'm going to ask you to choose a favorite. And I'm like, a favorite of what? Because I have a favorite everything. Is there something that stands out in popular culture today or in the past that really resonates with you that could be considered your favorite?
I studied with Ram Dass, who's an amazing teacher, and he helped a lot of people. His book, Be Here Now, was pivotal in my life and lots of others. I have to admit I'm an eternal Moody Blues fan. I know the 70s and 80s. At that time, they were tapping into really profound, expansive, extraordinary, transcendental, universal truths, and they brought them through through the venue of pop music, which is very cool. And I imagine there's people doing that. Like Secret Garden is very good today. I like Secret Garden. Anyway, there's really no shortage of wonderful movies. The Truman Show is one of my favorites. It's a metaphor for a guy who's trapped in illusions and has to break his way out. I mean, even, Dee and I, we have Amazon and we have Netflix, and we sit at night and we scan all the possible movies we could watch. And it's just unbelievable, the crap that's out there. I mean, the horrible, violent, stupid, brainless, mindless, disgusting movies that are popular just blows my mind. We just have to go really, really far to find one that's intelligent, but we do. But my point is that there are intelligent ones, and even in the mire of dumb movies and dumb music and dumb literature and dumb politics, there no judgment there, that there are occasionally creative, shining people who bring through really extraordinary movies, really extraordinary music, really extraordinary books, really extraordinary politics. And those are the people that are going to be the saviors of our world, because they are pillars connected to a higher source that is otherwise a vast wasteland. And so we must celebrate and support artists and musicians and actors who have their head on their shoulders and who are trying to make a contribution, because they really are.
That's awesome to hear you say, and it takes me back to a different part of our conversation where you were talking about permission, because who knows? Maybe you are, maybe I am, maybe Scott is, maybe somebody watching is. We just need to give ourselves the permission to think differently and to step aside and see what comes and surrounds us just by our being, in addition to being on the lookout for it in others.
Very well said. If you knew Barack Obama in high school, would you ever think he'd be our president? I mean, no.
Right.
So you could be the next great leader or a great inventor. You could just bring free energy to the world, or any of us can do that. Could be anybody. And so let's not underestimate what we're here for.
I'm curious how you would look at your journey, and I'm curious how you would characterize that in terms of being selfish and your thoughts on selfishness, as we need to put ourselves first now and again, or always.
Lovely, good question. You reminded me of a quote by a preacher who was asked how he gave such great sermons, and he answered, "I just set myself on fire and people watch me burn." and the truth is that people are starved for passion. We live in a very numb and deadened and lifeless world, despite the fact that people are going through gyrations and having sex with lots of people and just kind of doing lots of stuff. Behind it, there's a great emptiness. And so when somebody comes along, whether it's an author or a lecturer, a minister or a coach or a healer or a musician or a dancer or sports hero, and they're truly connected with their passion, they are exuding an energy that is healing simply by virtue of being in it. People who model passion, no matter what they're doing, are inspiring other people to follow their own passions. So it's really not the words I'm saying on stage, and not so much the dance that the dancer is dancing, although that's a part of it. It's really more the energy that somebody is exuding. So when I keep myself entertained and inspired, two things happen. I'm having a lot of fun, and two, I'm empowering and inspiring the audience to catch that energy and do the same thing for themselves. It's not selfish egotistically, it's selfish spiritually, in the sense that that which serves everybody besides me is really good selfishness, because everybody wins in that scenario. A lot of people in our culture, at least a lot of people I meet, deny themselves because they're afraid they don't want to be too egotistical, but those are the very people who need to step forward a little more, because in that step forward there's a release and a transformation and a healing that will affect not just them but lots of other people.
And if they don't do it, what a waste that would be.
You kind of ball up, you shrivel up, and you're denying there are certain books that I always wanted to write, many years ago I wanted to write a commentary on A Course in Miracles. I wanted to write a workbook about the workbook. And I had it all. It would be a spiral-bound book, and on and on. And then I didn't do it because I had other projects. And then I walked into a bookstore one day, and there was that very book written by Sandra Ray, which I celebrated. I'm glad she wrote it. My belief is that when the world is ready for something great, Spirit is kind of like beaming good ideas to lots of people. And the ones who have their antenna up and are willing to receive it and act on it, they're the ones who bring it forth and succeed and serve. So anybody can come up with a great idea that can change the world, at least a great idea that can change your own world. And at the very least, that's all you're asked to do.
There are many things that I really like about Alan. The fact that he took the time to be with us, to have this conversation, and to share some of the thoughts that he has accumulated through his life with us is pretty amazing. The piece that stuck out the most for me was the Just Right Tribe. And in fact, I'm probably going to hashtag that, Scott, because I like it so much. Each person that comes into our lives is there for a reason, whether we get to meet them in just a moment of eye contact, whether we actually get to know them and give them a hug, or whether they come in contact with us for a length of time. It's an incredible opportunity to really connect with those around us and find out, how can we dream bigger? How can we tap into the trust to show up with who we could really be and the why of being here in this time and place?
It just seems that Alan has taken in his journey a pretty deep dive into the universals that underpin what it means to be not only human, but beyond human. And then he's come back and has been so approachable. He makes it fun so that you can kind of, oh yeah, I knew that all along. I guess that's a challenge for our audience as well. As much as he has spoken to you, now go out and figure out how you can apply it and have fun at the same time.
And having this be the last conversation in our series of Putting Yourself First, we have been having thoughtful conversations with people passionate about business and personal development. Grow and learn and share. So comment with us and share this video with somebody that you know that could use the information from the conversation right now. Thank you to Scott from the Scott Treatment, which businesses capture the potential and power of video through post-production. Find out more at thescotttreatment.com. And I'm Jess Duell, and when we work together on your business, we are infusing the business vision with prioritized action to make consistently good decisions and see the results that you want. Let's connect. Visit jessicaduell.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the JSY Show on YouTube. Thanks for viewing, and we will see you next time.